I listened to another podcast about parental loss recently. And when I hear other parents that have gone through something where their kid had this like medical issues, I hear the same thing from them, right? Like this disconnect that your life is kind of on this other track. It's not on a parallel track to other normal pregnancies and things. So this was just like an emotion that just kept reoccurring throughout. So that I would journal about and reflect on.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter. It's the Author Podcast. We get to talk to amazing people from around the world, amazing stories. And today, Elizabeth is on the show. We're going to talk about her journey as an author. She's a first-time guest, everybody. So we're all excited about this. We're going to be talking about her journey. And it's going to really touch a lot of lives. And I know there's many people who have been down this path and haven't found answers for what Elizabeth has gone through and how she's come out the other side. And she's written a book about it. She's here to share her story. And as a parent, I think you're going to love this. So, Elizabeth, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on the podcast. Welcome to Living the Next Chapter.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for giving me the space to share.
It's great. Excellent. For those people who are meeting you for the first time, Elizabeth, where do you live? Where are you in this big world of ours?
I'm in Montreal, Quebec. And I live in Verdun by a beautiful river. I've lived here.
We have lots of listeners in that part of the world. I'm here in Ontario, so we're both on this side of the border, which is fun for me as a host to have somebody here from Canada, which is great. You've lived there your whole life? Is that where you're from originally?
Yeah. I was born in Montreal. Lived a little bit around the outskirts of Quebec in the Gaspé and the South Shore, but I've landed back in the city, and yeah, it's home.
I like that. That's great. Many people I talk to are from all different places. They're like, oh no, I grew up over here and now I live here. And it's like, oh, I like when somebody's kind of homegrown. This is my circle. This is my community. That's amazing. It's good. Excellent. We have a lot of authors, Elizabeth, that listen to the show and they come here for inspiration from a fellow author. What was it for you that started the whole journey of, you know what, I want to take my story and write it as a book and put it in the world? Was it somebody giving you a little prompt to do this? Was it on your own? How did this come to be?
So I started first actually with a blog post because my story involves it was it felt lengthy at the time. My pregnancy and subsequent loss, but it was a complicated pregnancy, like 5 months in, and writing a blog was a way to kind of express to everyone who were wondering and asking questions or concerned, I think, because there was health concerns with the baby, like he had a heart issue, that it was a way to communicate and kind of give a bit of a barrier of multiple questions, repeating yourself and so forth. So I started actually with that, like writing through a blog. And then once I then turned it into actual just personal journaling when I didn't think I wasn't writing for an audience. I was just writing to get my emotions out and kind of, because I had already started in that format, which was really helpful. And then so after the journey continues. So it's not like it's ended, but this was 10 years ago. So about 8 years ago or so, someone approached me because they had really liked. I had several people tell me that it was helpful to read my blog posts when they were going through a loss of their own in pregnancy. And so there was like some feedback that this was like helpful to hear. It helped me in my journey. And then I was working in a school at the time, and a friend of mine who's an English teacher, she was really open. She said, "Can I read what you've been writing?" Because I had said I'd been writing a lot more and had personal journaling entries and things. So I kind of gave it over to her to read, and she just came back and said, "You have to do something with this." And so then I really had no idea where to go with that. And it was a pretty it's all very personal. And when it's a journal entry, it's kind of hard to think someone might come and break it down or tell you what they want to hear more of, or they don't want this part of it. Like that felt really intimidating. So it was really helpful for her to refer me to Mally from Next Gen Publishing. So she's based in Victoria,
Yeah.
BC. And I just kind of met with her and instantly felt a good connection. I felt safe, with what I was gonna like let people open up and see and read. And yeah, it kind of went from there. It was about a year's worth of like a back and forth with what I was writing, then prompts or suggestions, and um, to keep me kind of propelling forward to still write more, to kind of, it was a very, very, very interesting journey, very therapeutic, because what I would say too is that I think this expectation that we just write something that's ready for packaging and publishing is not at all how it goes. So the best
Yeah.
thing to do was just to like jump in and send or have something to work with. And then it was a great team of editors. And so they would, when I was ready, like they sent it to me, but when I had time to watch back and kind of keep going, because it was going back into a lot of emotions, I would
Yeah.
look at their comments. And a lot of it was, I want to hear more about this, tell me more about this.
Yeah.
And then actually what the book also became, it was layers. So there was, when I was going through it, the journal entries that were much more personal. And then a third kind of layer was me looking back on things and how I was seeing myself through this journey. And now where I kind of saw myself, and it was almost like a therapy appointment when I would get some of these reading, like these responses, or I'd meet with Mally because she said, you say this about yourself, but it's actually not true. And I'll give you an example. It was I think it's a common thing that I'm really hard on myself about. I wasn't doing this well, or I was pushing everyone away completely. Just like, no, you weren't. Like you're describing that your life still continued, that you had all these things, but so what part of it are you really trying to describe? It was just like my emotions, expressing them in front of someone was what was difficult. But I was clearly writing about it, and I had let people in the
Yeah.
blog and so and all these ways. So it was this beautiful experience, and I think that I'm trying to look at writing that way now. That this isn't that it was never about an end product, that someone
Yeah.
can take and digest or pay for. Um, it was just about, I need this. So when I started, it would be like, it would be the middle of the night because grief wakes you up. It doesn't have a time.
Yeah.
So it would be, and I would just be like raw with emotions. And I'd get in this case, I would type it was the way I preferred to do it. And I would just type out what I was feeling and going through and the thoughts that were happening. And it just ended up that it was like it was compiled into this huge amount of text in the end. So yeah, so
Yeah.
it was, what happened too is I had gone back to school at the same time as I started doing this reviewing and editing with NextGen, and I was in a painting class, and it was the fall, which is when my grief really resurfaces. It's when the loss happened. So I was painting, and it was, of course, related to my grief. So it was whether it was waves, or it was, where I would go for a walk in the rain with my dog, and be alone with my thoughts. And these kind of things were what I was painting. And then I would come back and be able to write, and it was helping me access all these other emotions and thoughts and reflections. And a lot of it too was this gentle way of relooking at myself, and you know, being less critical, because I was pretty critical reading back and saying, well, how I was then, I don't like that. I don't like that
Yeah.
about it. And then I also was in therapy through different points in the last 10 years. And those are kind of things that we looked at and worked on to kind of change this voice, this narrative that I would have with myself, which is still a work in progress. I think everyone has that to some extent. So yeah, it was the end goal. I mean, why did I decide to publish it and share it? Really was, I think, a way to honor my son. That
Yeah.
his story lives on. That was an important piece. Know that he still has a ripple effect in this world, even though he passed
Right.
away. And that
Yeah.
he's still an active member of our family in that way, but also that people echoed that there's something here that I think people need to hear. My sister
Yeah.
read the book too afterwards, and she'd gone through a lot of difficulties in pregnancy, and she said it echoed to her just a lot of this loneliness and this like longing, and when things aren't working out, like that, a lot of that she felt too, and she said people need to hear about this. So it was
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of just jumped and said okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Off you go.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
What what was how far along were you in your pregnancy when you lost your son?
So it was 8 months. I was 8 months into
Wow.
pregnancy. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
we only had, I think, like early appointments, ultrasounds and things. The first ultrasound was actually only at 4 or 5 months. So it was July of 2015.
Yeah.
And it was during the ultrasound appointment that the doctor noticed there was something wrong with the heart. And it was like noticeable in his face, like that there was something really, really going
Yeah.
on. Um, and he didn't kind of know what to do with it. So then it led to referrals to the hospital setting, and waiting for those first appointments, a lot of it just became, you know, not just about, yeah, everyone wondering what really was going on or what was wrong. There was 3 heart
Yeah.
defects. So then there was cardiology appointments on top of ultrasound appointments, and the ultrasound appointments became almost well, near the end, it was more than weekly. But basically that time period from July to late October, because it was November 2nd, first second that he passed. It was
Yeah.
just in and out of hospital genetic testing to see kind of what was the root cause of it, which was discovered to be like this kind of first case and reported in the world of the variety, I guess, of the chromosomal difficulty, of like where there was a defect, and also waiting and learning, will this affect other pregnancies? And so kind of felt like in that process, my husband and I, so he would come to every appointment with me, which was so good. We look back on that like with a lot of gratitude, or we'd have the appointment and we'd have the rest of the day together to kind of just sit with it. But we saw it too as this was actually the time when we have with our baby, because we kept seeing him on the screen, right? Other people are talking or looking at it scientifically. We were looking at it
Yeah.
emotionally, right? And
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
chance to see how he's doing. So that, but there was also like emotions of just the fear of what would happen. And we knew about him into July, end of July, beginning of August, that he was going to be a special needs kid. And we there was a lot of unknowns, but we decided to go ahead with the pregnancy. We had like
Yeah.
great supportive family, and financially, all of our means. We were already in love with them. Like it was hard to think
Yeah.
anything different of that. So yeah, so we went forward with the pregnancy, wrapping our heads around, okay, what will our life look like? Some of the emotions and things and what I would go through too was just feeling so different than now everyone else who's gone through pregnancy. Like, so the questions people ask, they just didn't apply to me anymore. And
Yeah.
like, I'll give you an example. Like, we later on in October, we were hearing that, okay, the baby will be in the hospital for the first while, awaiting a heart surgery. And so when people would ask, oh, they start to give their advice about, when the baby comes home and like all of these kind of things, the tricks, it was just like it was so hard to hear that kind of stuff because you're like, yeah, it's not
Mm-hmm.
that. So like there were these layers of grief that would pop up that like you can't know or expect. But I think I've been I listened to another podcast about parental loss recently, and when I hear other parents that have gone through something where their kid had this like medical issues, I hear the same thing from them, right? Like this disconnect that
Mm-hmm.
your life is kind of on this other track. It's not on a
Yeah.
parallel track to other normal pregnancies and things. So this was just like an emotion that just kept reoccurring throughout. So that I would journal about and reflect on. But what happened leading up to like October, there were just a lot more appointments. They'll listen in for heartbeats when you go, as well as the ultrasounds. And I went into pre labor in October, end of October, but they had really said I kind of clung to this early on in the cardiology appointments that they really needed the baby to get to 36 weeks to be strong enough to, I think, tackle the surgery post
Yeah.
post delivery. And so I think it was 33, 34 weeks. I was going into like it was preterm labor, and I ended up at the hospital and kind of thinking, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
But the doctor just kind of came back and said to like, if we need more time, like, and like, so if you could magically slow this down. And it did. It did. The
Yeah.
labor contraction slowed down. I hadn't been that dilated and so forth. So we ended up back home.
Yeah.
But about a week later at a hospital appointment where they were looking for, they put the belt around you. I was very used to this.
Yeah.
To listen for the heartbeat and for your heartbeat, and they just had trouble finding it. And then it kind of led to them eventually, okay, well, let's go look at an ultrasound because I was like too much. There was a lot of fluid that I had in my belly at the time too,
Yeah.
and then that's where they didn't see the heartbeat anymore. Yeah, so that was November 1st or 2nd, yeah. So
Yeah.
and then yeah, like what happened later was like it just but I had to deliver, which was
Yeah.
very difficult, but there's a lot I read about gratitude, I think, in my book about my family being around, and kind of
Mm-hmm.
and I had this, I think of it with gratitude now, it became not so good later on. It's just I wasn't masking, but I would definitely concentrate on everyone around me and how they were doing. So I even did that in the labor. So it actually kind of made the reality of it a little less terrible, because I was just with people I loved and they were looking out for me, and I kind of was focusing on that and them, and it helped me get through it all. And but then
Yeah.
I was off work for 5 months afterwards, and kind of was then sitting alone with it all, which is when things kind of
Right.
hit more.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit of a busybody too, so I kind of filled time. I did some ceramics, which was always really helpful. I found like my emotions would really like be let out a bit more because I was doing something, right? It just feels less intimidating. No one's looking at you, waiting for you to just start, bawling. It's coming more naturally, or,
Yeah.
there's a better, I don't want to say a better flow of of it all. And then also, walking in the rain where no one can see you. You're not worried about someone passing you by and seeing that you've been crying.
Yeah.
So there was
Right.
different things like that helped. But when I went back to work, this was March of that year of 2016. I think I just had less room to breathe, to go through things. And was now back in a role of taking care of other people. So I was a counselor at a high school and trying to help other people manage their emotions and difficulties and traumas and things. So I kind of didn't have the much of enough of an outlet, and I was still pretty worried about how other people uh, were worrying about me. So I wanted to be better, I think. And it just started to get really difficult. I talk about in my book about being super irritable or, just not having patience for things I had patience for before. Those were some signs. But then I also at one point felt this urge to kind of live a different life. Like I wanted to just jump away. And,
Hmm.
and, I was out, my husband and he was always very good at listening to where my thoughts were at, or even I let him read my journal entries and things. And it was kind of this way we would be able to talk about it without necessarily talking even all the time. And I shared that with him that I wanted to just like escape from all of this. And he said, yeah, but what about me? Like, can't leave this life. It's you and me. And it was a good grounding moment and a testament, I think, to like our love for each other and our wanting to, just there's a good thing about like this. You want to be better for someone else too, right?
Yeah.
But I ended up going finding therapy again, or I should say, yeah, finding therapy with a psychiatrist through the hospital, the Jewish Channel. That's where I had all the support, where I gave birth, and it led to a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder. So, and then I kept writing. I had therapy. I had art, and different things like that. So it kind of gave me some space again, and I got better at work about saying like, I have therapy today. I can't make it into work after that. I just need time, and people were supportive.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So and I kind of was mapping this mapping it, or like writing about all of this at the time. So it was so strange, like going on 2 years ago, to like go back and read some of this, and I would often do that in the fall. Like this was the time where I almost jumped and wanted to be back into this, and like get back into this to be.
Yeah.
I was feeling raw anyway, so might as well go back in. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's your own personal story, and it's hard to put your story out in the world because it's not really written for somebody. It's written about you and what you lived, your experience. Even though it's not really written, you're not writing to somebody to like on purpose to kind of help them in the basic idea of the book. But who do you hope the book helps when they read Lost Within Waves? Who do you hope that picks up this book and finds comfort, support, doesn't feel so alone, like you talked about? Who do you hope this book helps?
I think for sure people who've gone through perinatal loss, or just the loss of a child. But also, I mean, my sister had echoed that for her, just difficulties with pregnancies and just that longing for motherhood that wasn't just happening as easily as everyone else. That for sure. I think a friend, family members who are kind of watching from the outside and wondering how can they help. I think it would be really good to read it. Like I write about a friend who she was kind of just spot on. Her name's Sarah. She was giving birth to her third kid in December, so a month after I was due, and we still maintained seeing each other. And it was really hard for me to be around families. I like stopped following everyone on social media who were posting pictures of family or anything like that. But she kind of she'd kind of look at like check in with me about what it was I needed. So she had a newborn, but she would still like initially was okay that she could come over and nurse around me. But then she saw even in my eyes at some point, like I think it's getting too difficult, you know? And then so late subsequent times she would just come over, you know, even if it was for a short amount of time, but without the baby, without her family, without, you know, and just be there. We just watch
Be
TV
her.
or
Yeah.
chat about other things. Like she kind of knew, you know, um, I think that people in my family, my closest circle, they wanted to stop it all for me. You know, not stop it, like you can't, but um like their empathy also meant that can I do something to try and help you through it? And the answer was no, like you can't. You just can't uh you can't fix it for someone else. So
Yeah.
I write about my interactions at times with my sister, you know, an honest back and forth about she was feeling like I was masking my emotions and not feeling them enough. And then I was kind of saying you know, I need some distance. This is only me figuring this out. And, you know, the time I wanted with family wasn't about rehashing things either, right? And then I had a lot of difficulty
Right.
with my mom, um, all internal, because I knew she was a mother to me. I knew she had pain losing her grandchild. I knew she had pain seeing me. And that just like was too much for me. Like it was kind of this like reflector of you know, I could see and empathize with what she was going through, and it just was too hard to be around her. And that was like
Yeah.
for a good amount of time, but she remained patient, actually, really patient, and despite that loving, and she didn't try to pry or anything either. So yeah, I think that the people around us want to be there, and knowing how to is really, really hard. Um, I think that um, these platitudes that people say can be really hurtful. Um, and just like it's kind of less important to say something to try and remedy or fix a situation, and just more important to be into like to try and be in tune, and to you can even ask, you know, like what do you not what you need, because I don't think you're going to get an answer. We don't really know what we need in those moments,
Hmm.
but you know, just going for a walk, and it's just about going for a walk or doing things together. um, there's a lot of other ways, and bottom line, I think people say things because they're uncomfortable, right? We're
Right.
uncomfortable with death, we're uncomfortable with the grief, with expressing what's difficult, and but it is a part of our lives. You know, we're not, you know,
Yeah.
it hits all of us at some point, different different ways or different experiences of grief. But I think people say things because they're uncomfortable, and that now, like, even now, it just makes me angry because then it's about you. It has nothing. You're not actually here for me. You know.
Hmm.
So
Right.
yeah, that's an audience as well. I think um, maybe women just in general and how we process things, or don't process things, or like emotions that we are not um, comfortable with, like anger. We're not taught to
Yeah.
be comfortable with living in anger or being in anger. Um, I had to do that like later on. I was just not, didn't want to be an angry person or irritable person. And that's what I thought I was becoming. So that was difficult. But man, I think I had so many reasons to be angry. You know, like it was totally
Hmm.
not okay. What happened to us and happened to me and happened to my son. But, you know, I'm not the only one. I think most of us grow up with like, well, you know, anger is not an attractive personality, or you know, it's not an attractive emotion in a girl. And there's something,
Yeah.
you know, people get like, oh, you better, you know, those emotions are, you know, I don't know, that we just kind of push it. One is wants to push it aside, and but yeah, I,
It's interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because from my side, knowing that I was going to be talking to you, I've had a conversation with my wife. We lost our baby at about 3 to 4 months. It would have been our fourth. And speaking from a dad's point of view in all of this, my wife had direct connection with the baby, obviously, carrying the baby. I felt disconnected and not knowing how to deal with it as a dad.
yeah,
Because when you first find out that you're having a baby, everyone's excited.
yeah,
Everybody's your brain switches
yeah,
from I'm me, now I'm a parent. It's going to happen in a period of time, and I'm going to become this person.
yeah,
And now I have to transform everything that I think from a guy's perspective. Again, being disconnected from the whole process, you're just kind of watching from a distance and cheering your wife on and trying to be supportive. But when you lose your child,
yeah,
I didn't know what to do with myself. Like I didn't know how to help my wife. I didn't know how to help myself. I felt like everybody didn't know what to do with me
yeah,
and didn't know what to do with my wife. Everybody treated us like precious china. They're like afraid to say the wrong thing. So I'm just going to not talk to you. And then that's the worst thing because everybody's now pulled away from you.
yeah,
And when we lost our baby, I almost lost my wife at the same time. She almost died. And I'm like talk about like a whole range of emotion from the highs of you're going to be a dad, you're going to be a mom to your wife's in the hospital, we're going to send the ambulance. You're like, I don't I don't know how to process all these things in real time.
yeah.
And there's no handbook for
No,
this. There's no I don't feel like there's anybody out there who knows what I'm feeling. So when we met to talk about this and you coming on the show and about your book, it just brought back, I would use the title of your book,
yeah,
waves of emotions for me to think that I'm going to have time with you and talk about this book. I think your book is really important. And I just don't know for those parents listening who feel like they're completely on their own, you're not,
hmm,
right? Grabbing Elizabeth's book is going to be a good foundation for you and a good starting point, maybe to have those conversations with people or how you deal with people who are pulling away from you because they don't know how fragile you are in the moment. They don't want to do something to upset you or hurt you, or they just don't know what to say,
no, they can, yeah,
right? So this book is going to be a good companion for them.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you touched on a lot of things. I'm so sorry for your loss, and we like that it's a child, so it comes back. Like it'll be maybe that time of the year that happened, or little things
Right.
like. But I know what you were sharing just about as a father, and not knowing how to juggle or wrestle with that. Uh the With my husband, I think there was this, every month, every year there was a perinatal loss awareness day, and I would share, and I'd want to kind of, I still try and like log in when it's an online thing, and there's fathers that go, and I feel like there's maybe a bit more of an allowance for men to feel those emotions. And I kind of asked my my husband, was like, you don't want to share anything, or there's men's groups now, there's a bunch of things like that, and he was just no. And
Hmm.
that's just not his way. He did go to a therapy session once, but yeah, he didn't. It just wasn't what was helpful for him. What was helpful, and this was coming back even to the summer when I was still pregnant, was he was reading. So he was reading a book about, parents preparing for a special needs child and the grief of that. And so it led to us kind of talking a little bit about what things that he read when I was going through my like allowing myself to feel anger, and it was irritable, and he was actually reading books about um he was doing his master's in English literature at the time, and was really interested in particularly women's studies, so he was reading a lot of books about women and anger. And so it was good timing because he's kind of grown up with like, you you escape a situation where someone's angry. You don't live in it and stay in it. So I sometimes that would make, if in the past it would make me feel like, oh, I'm I'm too much. I think that's what we can feel as women too. I'm too much. I better tone this down because my husband's not tolerating this right now, which wasn't the case. Like he ended up being able to say, I don't know what to do when you're like that. I'm just saying that out loud. I don't know what to do, but that doesn't mean I'm saying for you to stop feeling what you're feeling. Like I'm just trying to wrestle with this or figure this out, so,
Yeah.
If my face looks a certain way, I guess is more or less what he's saying, right? Like don't stop what you need, which was really helpful. And then he just found, like, I think men should read this too, right? Because if you want to understand, if you want to kind of jump in and like and understand the breadth of all the different types of things we're going through, because we've carried this child, because there's so much physical, but then emotionally, like after the birth, like in January, especially, I still needed to feel like I was a mother. I felt I still owed it to my son that I was a mother to him. But I didn't know, like, there was nothing to do with those emotions, like there was nothing to materialize, right? Like I didn't have a child to nurse and I think that excitement you talked about when you first find out you're going to have a kid, we get excited and we start planning. So this false idea that don't tell anyone after 3 months, you're still, I get it. But you've still been invested. You're still like emotionally there. And maybe you went and you picked up a book about being a parent. Maybe you went and you picked up this cute blanket or stuffy that you want to share with your child. And I had trouble with the idea of having a shower, a baby shower, because I didn't know how we were going to go. And it was my social worker who was at the hospital who said, well, but why? Why not? And I think it was, I didn't want people to be around me and celebrating it all, but she kind of tried to change it. It was like, yeah, but you're preparing for your child, your baby, and what you want, what you want for them. I didn't know. We were waiting to find out it was a boy. We found out it was a boy after the birth. We do these things and more or less to jump ahead, the objects that I still had were a way that I could go back and be with him, And so maybe also a tendency, more in men, I think, than in women, is to say, let's next chapter, let's close this off, and we have to kind of keep going, especially if you see your partner grieving and struggling with their mental health. You want that to be done. You want them to feel better. But it's actually like kind of not meaningfully, but saying comments to kind of move things along faster are maybe more hurtful and maybe might keep them more in that depression and grief, because we really need it. We have like those, I still have my shoebox, like that the hospital prepares for you. You don't think to do these things, but it was so helpful. They had pictures, and they had like a little charm, and they had and I had the blanket that I had for, like the wrap blanket that I had for him, and taking moments with that, or making like an ornament for the Christmas tree that will always be there. We think that, not just men, but more commonly, I guess, we'll think that if we take away those, the reminders or different things like that, or we just help someone move faster through it. But that's kind of saying an opposite message. It's saying that child doesn't deserve the space, the talking about, and and I my son, who's 8 now, so he knows he has a brother, and it was very early on that we started talking about that. And part of it actually was through the object cycle. His name his nickname when I was pregnant was Little T, because 2015 in June, the Jurassic World was coming out, and I'm a big Jurassic Park fan. And I
Oh,
had my Jurassic Park
okay. Yeah.
T-shirt on, and a coworker saw my with my belly and says, you're not growing a baby, you're growing a little dinosaur and like a little T-Rex." And so
Rawr.
this
Yeah.
became his nickname. And and when he was born, we gave him the name of Theodore. But we always still refer to
Mm,
him as little T. And so all of this little T-Rex kind of themed baby stuff, his blanket or the stuffy that someone bought for him, have stayed in our family, and they've stayed part of our
nice.
conversation. So when, I would, at some point, I said to my son, I think I guess he was around 2 at the time, 2 or 3, that was your brother's. And then he would ask questions, and I would talk about it. And yeah, I would get emotional while I was talking about it too. And I would come back and talk with my psychologist about, am I messing him up by just talking
Mm,
about a son, his brother that he will never meet? Is he going to be this weird, he's going to turn into this very weird writer, right? Only writes dark things. No, no. But
yeah.
she kind of said the opposite. She's like, no, you're, you're allowing, you're voicing to your kid that death doesn't separate us, like that love is last,
Mm,
that will always last. And that's super comforting actually for a kid to hear, right? That you're part, he remains part of our lives and our family. And the more that we would talk about or integrate little T, the emotions weren't as heavy anymore too, so
yeah.
like water, it really will dilute it. The pain isn't going to be
Yeah.
as intense all the time. And whether it's a time of year, a memory, a song, or all kinds of things that kind of hit us surprisingly when we are remembering someone. So when grief hits us, I like to think that mm, I don't know, our life still has them in it, weaved in it, like at every moment. So uh, we like dinosaurs in my family. Like, and my son has grown up with really excited about having a dinosaur collection. Or he's 8 and we just watched Jurassic Park for the first time, and it was so
There
fun.
you go.
And it's this unthreatening way too, right? That he's with us sort of, for that. So I
Yeah.
have a water bottle
There you
holder
go.
that's Jurassic Park, and no one would know the wiser, but it is sort of like this way that I'm always connected. So
It's comforting, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Lost Within the Waves is out. You're an author now. Congratulations. Do you think you're going to keep writing as an author? Do you have more stories to tell?
Um, yeah, I think so. I'm also, I feel more comfort now saying I'm also an artist. So I'm in art
Yeah.
school and studying to be an art teacher. And so I do ceramic art and
Great.
painting. And so it's kind of always, I feel like I'm bouncing around with different things all the time. But I've recently tried
Yeah.
to get back into either writing or drawing every day. So I'm trying to use these writing prompts from a book, and it's a little bit. I'm not really at a space yet where I know where any of this will go, but kind of like I did
Okay.
before, it's just I'm writing, and maybe things will eventually compile into
Yeah.
something, and then I jump off of that and keep going. But there's not. I don't want to.
Yeah.
The book took time, but I'm happy it took time. I actually stepped away from it for
Yeah.
a year and then reread it. And that was interesting. I had new reflections. It led to,
Yeah.
you know, um, I was in a better space too. Like I was finishing
Yeah.
a job
Yeah.
and starting a new venture. So, yeah, I think I will. If it makes sense. But yeah, I'm just enjoying that freedom of expression too. Yeah.
Because I think from a reader's perspective, there's a bond that happens when we read something from an author that we love.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a longing that we're like, I hope that Elizabeth writes again, because the connection I have with you as a reader, I want to continue the conversation. And I look forward to more coming from you. Short stories, poems, artwork, but something. that where I can stay in touch with you as a creative person, kind of living your life in front of us as inspiration for us to continue living our life, even though we're facing loss as well. You're kind of like a role model, somebody we can look to as inspiration when we're having bad days, going, somebody else has been down this path before. I'm not alone, right? And that connection, that bond is great when you as a creative person can keep being creative in front of us. I think it brings more people along and helps more people in the long term as well. So
I feel honored.
it's exciting.
That's a big role.
It is. It's a big responsibility. Right. And like, again, coming to this conversation, for me and my wife as well, just pondering the fact that I'd have time with you today. And like, we haven't really shared that story much with people at all. Our family knows, but it's just something you just don't know how to bring up in conversation. Oh, by the way, it's like, but to have somebody here with me that's been on a similar path and has understanding of some of the emotions and feelings, and then capturing it in a book for us then to have with us in the privacy of our own grief and understanding and next chapter, it's kind of nice to have that book as a resource. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for writing this.
Well, thanks for letting me share about it. And I think this idea of being able to voice that and hear that these stories, that these losses are happening, is an important one. And then the more I talked about, or people found out about the book or things, it would bring up a lot of other people saying, oh yeah,
Yeah.
And but then they're also, like you said, like talking about or how you do that is not easy. But I think there needs to be more awareness or acceptance of this. This is happening more than we think. The loss of of pregnancy, and maybe because in our society where we don't want to share before a certain amount of months, which makes sense, or if later on maybe people know a bit more about it, or just that we know it's affected someone, and like you said, like we don't say anything, which, isn't better. We distance and then so there's a distance, and now you're living like this loneliness or this sense of what we're going through. People can't not tolerate, that's not the right word, but they don't know what to do with it, right? So the better we get at sharing or listening, and I wouldn't have gone to a group session at the time. I had trouble even picking up a book, unlike my husband, about this. It was hard to dive into other people's experiences, but more recently, and I enjoyed and wished I had a podcast I could listen to back then. And the social worker who worked with me at the Jewish General, Luna, she actually started a podcast of her own after the loss of her daughter. And so she's having these guests come on and talk, and it's that ability to kind of listen to it when you need, even with earphones on, and the tenderness of hearing someone's voice, and talking about the experiences. I think a really powerful it's newish. It's not that new, but like a really good gift, a way of sharing. And the privacy of just having a book and also you take it for a little bit and you leave it. It's less threatening than I'm going to a therapy session for an hour. What do I really have to get into here? And then you stop and leave. Whereas the book, maybe go sit by the water. Go for a walk and read a few phrases, and then you keep walking. And come back to it maybe a year from now or not. But I've had people say, I'm getting your book, but I'm not ready yet. I said, I totally get that. Of course, you take what you need from it.
I'll get that podcast link that you talked about. We'll put it in the chat so people are in the show notes so people can then go and listen as well. But Elizabeth, Johnstone.com, Johnstone.com is the website. We'll have a link for that, so they can come and find you, see more about you, and connect with you after our talk today. Elizabeth, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for sharing your story, and Yeah, I hope that you continue to help many, many people with Lost Within the Waves. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.